rebuilding. The catastrophic failure, a new start, physically, mentally, our careers, our businesses. Step back, first step, next step. The driver in me just wants to get it done tomorrow. We'll do this, do that, let's move this, where are we at with this? You build some confidence, build some self-esteem, start to feel better about yourself. The Silverback Blueprint Podcast, a show for men over 40. We focus on getting stronger, staying motivated, building discipline, creating a community, and becoming truly happy. Hey guys, welcome back to episode 69. What do you mean welcome back? This is the first time you're coming to it. Welcome to episode 69 of the Silverback Blueprint Podcast. Today I want to talk about just my training. I know I get a lot of questions and I always forget to talk about my training. Sometimes I'm like, who gives a fuck about Kurt's training? Well, apparently some people do. 49 years old, coming out, this is February 26th, I believe this is going to be launching. I know it to be true because I asked Luke earlier. So I'm kind of coming into the tail end of my heavy competitive season of the bench. I will have, hopefully at this point, benched 575 and would be on the road to 600 is my goal for 2017, 2018. My heavy season for bench, my on season, is November to March. Last year I ran it a little more into April because there was a big meet, April 1st. And I do that for a few reasons. Part of it is when I train heavy like that in the bench, it takes a toll. It takes a toll on me. And I'm not injured. I don't have injuries. And I think that's because I'm following more of the on-season, off-season type situation. But this year, it's November to March. You know, I don't want to say 1st or 18th, or 18th is my birthday, but March-ishness sometimes. It really depends on how the progress has been going in the competition style. Last year, I finished with a 550 April 1st, which was like the last day I trained heavy, and then over the summer, bodybuilded, focus on those things, walking, went to Europe in May, so I did a lot of walking right out of April 1st to loosen up the back. One of the things that happens for me when I do that heavy, intense bench training is my lower back up into my mid back gets really, really tight, and I get these massive back pumps. So what happens is just the back was just walking, standing too much because of my weight. You know, I'm into 340s, 350s in my on season. My back is supporting that weight all the time. So it's like that muscle never gets a break. So it's not injured. I don't have like the back issues I had years ago when I got into getting better health and stuff. When I started creating Hostile, when my back was just like I couldn't pick anything off the ground because my back would go out. You know, that kind of shit back. It's not that. It's just tight. It's just tight from being under a lot of tension when I bench heavy, the way I bench, and I drive into my shoulders, the way you're supposed to bench anyway. There's a slight arch in the back, so that back gets worked. Those muscles get jacked there as well. But then just with the intensity and the, one of the things I work on bench is squeezing every muscle fiber during the press for sets and reps and, working into the 80s and 90% of my maxes, which is into the, at this point, 550, 575, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of wear and tear going on in there overall. So the point of that is that at 49 years old, I'm also aware that I can't sustain that for the whole year because I will break. I will break physically or I'll break emotionally. When you're always tight and you're always sore, it's draining. Right, that kind of thing. I mean, if I walk for a little bit, I walk from one end of the gym to the other, my back gets so pumped I got to sit down. And it's not because I'm not strong. It's just, like I said, those muscles are firing all the time. So I do that on-season thing. And I like it because I also know mentally as I get, closer to end of October into November that it's time to get ready. So my mindset changes. I start getting ready for it. I start picking the meets I want to go to. Dials it in, and it's fun, right? I really enjoy that. But now that I'm into the point where my back is tight and I'm, a little, not, I don't want to say miserable, but, I'm getting there. I also know there's light at the end of the tunnel. I know the heavy season's ending in March. So I know I can work harder for a few more weeks. I know I can put up with it for a little longer because there's a switch off where I switch. And then when I go into my off season, I go back into that, the walking. Last summer, like I said, I spent a lot of time in the bodybuilding phase, lots of high sets, lots of high reps, supersets, 2, 3, 4 back exercises, 2, 3 chest exercises, going for that pump, right? Building some muscle size. So this year I'm holding more muscle. I have more shape, than I've held in a long time. because I've been focusing on that kind of aspect. And I like it. I like the way it feels. I do believe it's also helping me lift better. I've got more muscle to recruit, and that's one of the reasons why I'm pretty confident going for my 575, 600 this year, because things are moving quite well and I'm just being smart. And that's one of the things, too, that when I see that in a lot of competitive sports, and we see that, my kids are teenagers still playing hockey, there's never an off season. If you talk to the real high ups in hockey, they're saying that's becoming a big issue, that the kids don't get a break physically and mentally. We're seeing kids coming in for training that are suffering from, bad backs and hip issues that you wouldn't see typically until they're in their 40s and stuff, because they're doing too much repetitive activity. They're doing too much in the same type of training, so they get imbalances, right? And then mentally, they're not playing the same way because they're tired, they're physically tired, they're emotionally tired, they're bored, right? I mean, you talk to guys like Gretzky and stuff like that. They didn't play 10 months a hockey year and stuff like that. They played soccer, they did other things, they had fun, they had off seasons, right? We've gotten into this whole thing about more is better, and that's in powerlifting, that's in anything aspect and stuff. And unfortunately, it's not true. And usually we figure that out the hard way when we suffer some big injuries and stuff, right? One of the things I'm lucky is I haven't had very many injuries to speak of, nothing major, because I've also been good at listening to my body. Now, I'm not talking about back in my super lazy fat days where I'm like, oh, I must take a break from taking a break. I mean, where there's days where for me, I bench on Tuesdays and Saturdays. And you know what? There's some Saturdays where I'm like, I do a couple warm-up sets and I'm just like, not today. But I've already had 4 or 5 workouts that week. So it's a little bit different than I'm just not working out today because I don't feel like it because the couch is warm and comfortable. Like there's a big difference with that. And that's where you got to be honest with yourself overall. So I'm loving where things are going with the bench. I'm liking what's happening. I'm excited to hit these goals that I have for myself for 2018. But I'm also really looking forward to getting back into more of that bodybuilding, that higher rep stuff, the pump. Even with the spring, now, end of February, March is coming around the corner. Getting out there in that fresh air. I love walking in the fresh air and the sunlight, and I like what it does mentally and physically and peace of mind. Super, super important. So as I getting into the tail end of my heavy season, my on season, I'm also starting to look forward to switching things up, right? So mentally, I'm excited about that, right? And mentally, I'm going to be happy to take away some of the exhaustion that my body's feeling from the heavy lifting as well. But all at the same time, I want to be hitting the goals that I've set for myself. Super, super important overall. And in the days where I can't walk, hopping on the bike. Food is better overall. I still need to get better at it, and I'm looking forward to this next bodybuilding season coming up to get better at that, more consistent with the macros and stuff. To me, that's going to be just that next phase, that next challenge and stuff, and just keep moving forward, little bites at a time, no pun intended with the food, but switching things up. So I think that's super important for balance. I love the gym. I love my gym. I love Hostile for sure. But I like having the different aspect. In the bodybuilding side, I'm training with a couple of different guys that are more into the bodybuilding. So it's nice to get in there with the guys and do a different type of training. It's nice not to be the lead dog as well, too. Whereas on the bench side, everyone looks to me for the guidance, which is my role at Hostile and the powerlifting team on the bench. But on the bodybuilding side, I like walking in and say, hey, what are we doing today? And then, all right, let's line it up and let's go. So it's fun to just be going along with it as well, right? That kind of thing. And it's a different feel with the bodybuilding and the pump and the high reps and gorging all the blood into the muscle, right? And feeling that thickness of the muscle. I really, really enjoy that overall. So it's really cool. And again, pretty cool to be fired up about training at 49 years old, going into 50. And hitting some goals. When I run into guys that tell me, oh, you know what, I'm too old for this, I'm too old for that. I think a few of them truly believe it. I think most of them just use it as an excuse and stuff. I mean, you should be training, period, guys. If you're older, you should be training. It's even more important. And you know what? I've got a couple guys I'm working with now recently that you could see a couple things that switched on for these guys. They're realizing that the physical release of the training. We talked a few episodes ago, iron therapy is a real thing. And I got one guy who said, you know what, Kurt, I love the training. I like how my body's changing a lot. He goes, but I really like the fact that I come in here 3 times a week with you and we get great workouts. I'm in with 3 or 4 positive guys. We work really hard. And he feels the difference mentally and physically. He had a busy week a couple weeks ago and he didn't get in. And, by the Friday, even his wife was telling him, you got to get back in the gym. She could see the change, the old version of him coming back, the stress, the different funk, that different energy, right? So important. So, don't worry that, you're 57 years old and you haven't trained in 10 years and you're worried that you might not have your 315 pound bench, right? Take that pressure off, get back in the gym, start feeling the muscle soreness, the good muscle soreness, the stiffness, the pump, right? Where you're like, oh, that was a great chest work. I can feel my chest and triceps are stiff today and stuff like that, right? And get back into that. Get back into that excitement, getting into the gym and getting a good sweat going at your pace. Listen, two things I tell people. We work on a scale of 1 to 10 of exertion level, and we work on the theory of heavy. And the way it works is this for me, is that on a scale of 1 to 10 of exertion, 1 being you're sitting there right now listening to this, on your couch. 3, you're listening to this, driving in the car. 6, you're listening to this in traffic and you're not going anywhere in your car, right? So the higher the number, the more stressful it is on you physically or mentally. So when we're back at the gym and we're training for the first time in a long time, when you get to 7, 8 out of 10 because you've done 2 or 3 sets in a row and you're out of breath and your muscles are getting sore and stuff like that, that's great. That 7, 8 is what's important. That 7, 8 is the exact same thing for me, but on that same exercise, it might require that I use double the weight and double the reps because of where I am conditioning-wise and strength-wise. But that 7 and 8 is the same effect, the same stress level in both our bodies. So that's what I like people to look at, is what level of exertion are you working with, right? We don't want you to go to 9.5. We don't want you to pass out and die at 10, right? But at 8, things get uncomfortable. 8.5, approaching 9, now you're having trouble catching your breath. You're having trouble speaking in full sentences. But what's nice about that, what's cool and key about that, that's also the point where the body is being forced to make some adaptive changes. If it's done consistently a couple times a week into the 8.5, 9, the body has to burn more fat, has to build more muscle, and has to increase its energy systems. It has no choice, right? So for you, rocking the prowler twice, the big metal thing we push across the floor, right, might get you to a 9 out of 10. Someone who's been a hostile for 6 months, they might have to do 7 to get to 9 out of 10. But what's important is they got that 9 out of 10. It's the same when we talk about heavy. I tell guys, if they want to jump in with us sometimes on the gym side, they're like, oh, I'm not as strong as you guys are, and I tell them 2 things. I said, look, I got to take a break between sets. The nice thing about the hangar, the gym, or the open gym at Hostile is we have multiples of everything. So we have 4 bench press, we have 7 squat cages. There's no reason why a bunch of us can't work out together. And if if you're similar in weight with someone else and we have to adjust the weight in between sets, that's okay. You got to take a small break between sets anyway. But the biggest thing, the thing that intimidates a lot of the guys is they feel they're not strong enough to train with us and stuff. And my theory on that, or how I look at it this way, is I call it the theory of heavy. Heavy is the same for you as it is for me. So when we grab a weight for 3 and it's heavy, that's the exact same feeling on my body that it's going to be on your body, even on Luke's body, right? It's the same feeling. Now, the difference is going to be that feeling of heavy at 3 reps might be 495 pounds for me on the bench, right? For someone else, it might be 225. For Luke, 115. What's important is that feeling of heavy is exactly the same for the 3 of us. Only the number changes. And I think if you wrap your head around that and you get that going, then you know what? Heavy is going to be heavy for you no matter what the weight is. The key is to get to that feeling. When I train my guys, my silverbacks, I say, guys, we're going to work back today. I want to go 8 out of 10 exertion level. The guys have been working out with me for a while understand what that means. So you'll see them, they'll adjust a couple sets in what weight they're using and stuff. But they have to learn that. And when they first start, they'll do a set. And I'm like, so how did that feel on a scale of 1 to 10? The new guys will say, 5. I'm like, it's more like a 7. Because sometimes they want to, don't admit that it was tough. Or, they're pussies and they're going to say 7 when it's really a 4. I'm watching that as a coach, looking for the exertion, the physical signs of exertion, right? The breathing, the stress, the look on their face, how the body's moving. Those are things I'm always looking at. I know what an 8, 9 should look at in certain things. So my goal is to help them fine-tune their scale of exertion. Same with me when I'm doing the bodybuilding, right? I want to be out of breath between sets. I want to get tons of sets and reps in, but I'm not worried the strength side of me goes to the side. I'm not worried that, hey, can I do lat pull downs at 300 pounds? I probably can. But if I'm trying to do 5 sets of 15 with a short rest, it's probably going to have to be 220. Because what's important is the 5 sets of 15, that volume, that blood flow, right? And that's having that control and that respect, that patience, knowing this is what it's all about. It's about this style of training today. It's about this. This is what I'm going for. The ego, it's not about how heavy I lift. I have my ego sessions. Those are done, right? I get those out of my system, right? It's about what is the end result we want to do. So that's one of the things that was cool to get back into on the bodybuilding side is get that crazy blood pump when you're down to 40 pounds on the cable curl because you've done a triple drop set and you can barely move your arms because they're just so gorged with blood and they're aching because they just, they want to stop. Not injured, mind you, just super well worked. It's a pretty cool feeling overall and stimulates more muscle, right? Great blood flow, a lot of nutrients in, a lot of waste material out, a lot of oxygen flow through the body. Phenomenal for overall health. And it's a different style and a different goal of training. So mentally, you've got a different challenge. Super important. The most dangerous thing that can happen to us in training is we become bored. We become complacent. Because what happens once we get bored and complacent, then we're like, I'll train tomorrow. Oh, I missed a couple of days. You know what? Monday's is a new day, a new week. I'll start then. Oh, you know what? I didn't get in there very much in January, so I'm going to get in there in February. That complacency that settles in, that's not good. So having different goals, going for different effect, right? Having a plan. When I talk about focus on a plan, all my shit's written down. I can pull you out my training journal from this year, last year, 12 years ago. That makes a difference as well. That goes down to the details and stuff. Anyway, guys, I just wanted to briefly talk. I wasn't so brief, though. But just get into it, what type of training I'm doing, coming off, looking forward to coming off the heavy season, what I'm looking to do in the off season, the bodybuilding phase, as I call it, and stuff. And what's nice about that, too, with the heavy training, if I do have some aches and pains and some stresses, right, that bodybuilding phase is going to help me heal through that. It's going to get blood in there. It's going to get activity happening and stuff like that. But it's going to give the joints and ligament and nervous system a chance to cool down, get out of the red line a bit, which is always good to do overall. Guys, that's all I got to say about that for now. Head on over to iTunes. Please leave us a 5-star review. And then head on over to hostilegear.com. Use the code, if you will, Silverback, and save 20% off something really cool from the website. I'll talk to you guys later.